Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you are here for our fourth study hall for understanding behavior. Thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time at one of these study halls, welcome. My name is Nick Ostosh. A little bit about my background is I've been a BCBA test prep instructor for the past 5 years. I am a total behavior analysis nerd. I took my first behavior analysis course when I was just a wee little 19-year-old lad in undergrad. Didn't know what he really wanted to do. I fell in love with behavior analysis, and 11 years later, here we are. So I'm 6 years certified. I have over 1,500 classroom hours teaching the exam. So I'll let you know I kind of know my stuff. And I'm really glad that you're here to kind of go over some of this stuff with me. So thank you so much for everybody who has given some topic suggestions. We are going to go for an hour, so we should be able to get through all or most of these. We might have a time for a few more, so if you want a topic that you want to discuss, go ahead and throw that into chat. Couple just quick little things before we get too deep. If you are here, I would really appreciate if you just smash that like button on the video. That's going to get us some more exposure, so everybody who's studying can see these study halls and take advantage of this resource. We are going to be typing a lot of notes in these sessions. I believe from the last sessions, we usually get about 3 to 4 pages of notes, but one of them we even got 7 pages of notes. If you go ahead and fill out the form that I dropped up in chat a little bit, I will send you all of the notes after this session. Just my gift to you. And if you are interested in tutoring services, you kind of like my style, there's a link to my shop below where you can check that out. All right, well, let's do it. We got 11 people here. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Yeah, I see Jennifer. She originally had schedules of reinforcement here, but now wants to go over our compound schedules of reinforcement. And why not? Well, I mean, we're here. Let's go ahead and do it. So let's just start with some compound schedule of reinforcement stuff. Now, a lot of people think that there's like 7 compound schedules of reinforcement, but I don't think it's really good to look at them in all 7 at once. I think we really need to break these schedules apart. So we can break these apart between our 2 categories. So we have compound schedules, meaning that we're looking at more than one schedule of reinforcement at a time. There's 2 different ways that we can present them. So we can do one schedule and then another schedule, or we can do all of the schedules are available at the same time. So let's go ahead and start with our one after another schedules first. Anybody know the term for that? Is that described successive schedules or simultaneous schedules? Throw it in the chat real quick. So the types of schedules of reinforcement that we're doing one at a time. So either this schedule is active or either this schedule is active. Is that successive or simultaneously presented? Are a lot of people saying simultaneous here? Any other thoughts? So those are actually going to be our successively presented schedules. So successive means one at a time. One is active, then another is active. And that's versus our simultaneous schedules, where more than one schedule of reinforcement is available at the same time. So like for me teaching with simultaneous schedules of reinforcement, we can look at concurrent schedules. I have like FR1 for drinking water. That's going to like help moisten my throat. And as I talk more, you'll see like my MO for that increases because I'd start to get like a dry throat, especially when I'm teaching a lot. So I suck in a lot of cough drops as well. So that's simultaneous schedule. Another thing that I can do is I can continue to ask you questions that has some different reinforcement for me. I can continue to talk about these concepts and the different ways that I have done that. So in the past, I've experienced different kinds of reinforcement, and the best version is the one you're going to get today. So Successively presented schedules, though, is really one at a time. If you were on my YouTube channel, you might have saw this week I posted a video where I actually do functional communication training with my dog. And in that, I actually show the different schedules where we have compound and multiple schedules. So let me actually run you through what this looks like first, and then we'll break down the actual schedule components. So in my multiple schedule FCT, this is a successive schedule. So again, that means one schedule is available at a time. And what I did is that I had, there's an SD and an S delta to signal which schedule is available. So what I did for my dog is that I taught her if she rings the bell that we're going to go outside. But I didn't want it to be like all the time she always has access to that and we're always going to go, because sometimes I'm unable to. So what I did is I created an SD for this behavior. So my SD is that there's nothing next to the bell. And then my S delta is that I put my hat next to the bell. So if she sees the hat next to the bell, that means that she knows that we're not going to go outside even if she hits the bell. But if the hat's not next to the bell, then I have a different schedule of reinforcement. We're going to go, it's FR1 to go outside. So that's the scenario. Let's write out those contingencies real quick. So SD is that there's no hat on the ground. Hat on the ground. Our behavior is my doggy Lexi presses bell. And that means we go outside for our consequence. Now let's look at our S delta contingency. The hat is on the ground. Now our behavior pressing the bell is extinguished, so we don't go outside. So these are two different schedules. We have FR1 as our first schedule, and then we have extinction as our second schedule. Now the thing with multiple schedules, and this is actually really important to note, is that multiple schedules change after a period of time. So there's not necessarily like anything that Lexi can do to, if the hat is on the ground, to make the hat not on the ground. It's just that she has to wait until I take the hat off, and then that SD is present. Now she can go press the bell and go outside. Yeah, it is a cute video. Thanks, Alyssa. I'm glad you watched it. It's a fun video. It's just like 6 minutes or so, and you can see this whole process too. So here's our multiple schedule. And really the main thing I want you to pay attention to is that these multiple schedules, they change after a period of time. So that's going to be our main differentiator between our chain schedule. Now let's go through the chain schedule FCT. Again, this is another successive schedule, so we're just going to copy paste this part. Now, a chain schedule changes when the previous schedule is completed. So it I didn't do a chain schedule with Lexi because it didn't really make any sense. But what we could do is that we could have our SD, they're going to signal the same things as they currently do. So we still have an SD and S delta in our chain schedules. And we're going to have these same exact contingencies, but when they become active becomes different. And another thing is that in a chain schedule, we can add more than one response to the different schedules. So here was what here's an example of what chain schedule FCT might look like for Lexi. So SD, the hat is on the ground, and then we go outside. So another consequence of this behavior of pressing the bell is going to be that the hat is on the ground. So think about this as like the presentation of S delta. And this is that flipping of the schedules. So once she completes the schedule FR1 to go outside, then it also flips the schedule to our S delta condition, which is extinction. Now, since this is extinction, it's not a schedule that can be completed. We would have to add another behavior for this schedule change. So now, and again, this is why I didn't do this. If Lexi did 5 tricks, and now the consequence of that could be there's no hat on the ground. So that's the presentation of our SD. So the main difference between these chained and multiple schedules is that with the multiple schedule is it changes after a period of time. And with the chain schedule, the basic schedules change when the previous schedule is completed. So you can use this for your clients as well. If we did like a red card, green card situation with our client, if we were to do a chain schedule, I actually often prefer chain schedule FCT with most of our clients, because now they actually would have to like do their tasks in order to unlock the ability to request for their reinforcers. Where in a multiple schedule, you can kind of just like wait it out, and eventually the opportunity will come. All right. Yeah, so Jennifer's asking a good question. Is there a specific order to the chain schedule, or can it change? So usually there is a specific order for it. So in this one, we only had the 2 schedules, so it just kind of flips back and forth. But if we had a chain schedule with like 3 different behaviors, then usually it would be like behavior 1 unlocks behavior 2, which unlocks behavior 3, and that unlocks your reinforcer. So usually in order. Jordy's asking a question. Multiple schedules utilize behavior contrast as well. So with behavior contrast, yeah, there would be different schedules in different settings. So you could look at behavior contrast between 2 schedules with multiple schedule. Absolutely. Good questions. Loving it, loving it. Okay, let's go ahead. We're not gonna go over our simultaneously presented schedules. One thing I will kind of note here is that if we were to have a mixed schedule, honestly, it gets really gray if a mixed schedule even exists, because the only difference between a mix and a multiple schedule is same exact thing, but no SDs. So for this example, it would just be like there's no difference if I have the hat on the ground or not. We don't use mixed schedules with our clients because like we'd rather have them have the signal for them and let them know like what's going to be the result of the behavior rather than make it unpredictable. Chain schedule would be the same thing here, just we wouldn't have the things to represent. That would be the tandem schedule. But the thing that's really tricky about a tandem schedule is that if you look at the definition for a behavior chain, it results in stimuli, or each link of the chain results in stimuli that serve as SDs for the next part of the chain. So by definition, any behavior chain has SDs and cannot be a tandem schedule. That's why if you see a real life example of a tandem schedule, just throw it out. It's 98% chance going to be garbage. And I say that from anybody who makes one. I have, in my 5 years of teaching, have not seen somebody come up with a good tandem schedule. So if that says anything, and how hopeless of an attempt it is, I just wouldn't. All right, so we're going to stop there for compound schedules because we could get lost in there, but hopefully that was useful enough. Let's go over our promoting generalization tactics. Not going to lie, it's been a little bit before I've gone over all of these. Let's get those in chat. So what are some of those strategies for promoting generalization? Let's see them. Who's got him? Anyone? Okay, yeah, so we have train loosely as one. Good, Victoria. Good to see you here. Teaching in different settings. So yeah, that would be like our multiple exemplar training. Yeah, we have programming common stimuli. Very nice. Okay, I'm seeing some nice answers in chat. Thank you guys so much. Indiscriminable contingencies. Excellent. Oh yeah, and then we have our general case study. Good, good, good. I'm liking it. Yeah, negative teaching examples, mediation, and behavior traps. All right, yeah, that's quite a few there. Let's go ahead and start breaking these down. So with general case, I think it's general case analysis is the correct term actually. So in a general case analysis, you're just investigating what might be useful for promoting generalization of skills for a client. So really this keywords, you're just like investigating. You're not really doing anything. You're kind of just like scoping like, all right, well, if we want to like teach him to cook, then like what meals do you think we're just going to like and that we can provide and that are safe and easy to do? It might be like, okay, well, he wants to be a little bit more social. So like what kind of activities can we be social at? Like, okay, he's into chess club. What like kind of friends are at chess club? Who do you think would be like good peer to kind of match them with? Things like that. Okay, in Train Loosely, what we're doing is we are varying up some of the irrelevant stimuli that relate to the training environment for a behavior. So especially with autistic individuals, they can be a little bit rigid in like what's there. Sometimes like everything has to be exactly perfect. So it's like, oh, the white noise machine has to be set at volume 5 or else like bad things are going to happen. And when we're training loosely, we're kind of just varying up some of those things that aren't really relevant to the skill. So for like teaching social skills, usually the white noise machine isn't going to matter too much. So if we have that at different volumes, whatever. If we kind of like change up the posters in the room, we change up the classroom that we're in a little bit, may or may not matter, but I'm assuming it doesn't matter. That's when we're doing Train Loosely. Very similar to multiple exemplar training, but the difference with multiple exemplar training is that we're varying up some of the most relevant stimuli that are needed for the behavior. So for example, if I'm teaching somebody how to use a phone, then I might teach them how to use Android phones, iPhones, home phones, the phone at school, etc. If I'm teaching like different examples of like writing utensils, I might teach markers, I might teach crayons, I might teach pencils, pens, all those things. So varying up those most relevant things. Next, when we're programming common stimuli, it's these are keeping some things the same between our training and generalization environments. So if we're teaching them how to use the phone, then we might teach them to use the phone that they always have on them in all settings. Cool. Indiscriminable contingencies, I think, is a really tricky one. So this is when it is unclear to the individual when certain reinforcement is active or not. So you can do this by providing intermittent reinforcement schedules and kind of like dissolving the SDs for them. So making sure that that it's not always like, oh, if this therapist is with me, then I can do this very frequently, but make it like, oh, we don't really know what's going to happen. And even like the therapist that you're with doesn't really indicate like what's going to happen if I do this. So kind of a tricky one. Does that make sense for everyone? Alyssa, I see your question. If a BCBA brings forks or spoons, etc., from a client's home to the clinic, what would that be? So if it's the same forks and spoons from the home to the clinic, then we're programming common stimuli because we're keeping some things the same between training and test environments. Cool. I'm glad these are clicking, guys. Awesome. Let's keep moving. Negative teaching examples. This is when we teach what not to do or what not to do a behavior with. So it's like let's say we're at McDonald's and we're teaching them how to like accept your order. So if like we say if they get your order wrong, we shouldn't yell at them or get upset. Or we shouldn't go throw a hamburger in their face. That would be a bad thing to do. So that's the behavior. And then it might be like, oh, if somebody smashed a hamburger in your face, then you could smash a hamburger in their face. So that kind of like indicates when and when not to engage in a behavior. I don't know. Probably not the best example. Sorry. Mediation. This is when something is placed in the environment to promote generalization or maintenance of behavior. So some examples, this could be a lot of different things. This could be a peer or a parent helping with the intervention, helping support with an intervention. This could just be prompts placed in the environment. So things like sticky notes or having a schedule or a calendar. Calendar mediates a lot of my behavior. So anything like that would be a form of mediation. Okay, behavior traps, I think, is actually less for our generalization. This is more for maintenance. So let's identify that here. Strategy used to promote maintenance of a behavior. Who can tell me what? So generalization, we're talking about like expanding a behavior. But what is maintenance? You just think maintenance. What does that mean? Anybody want to try that? Ooh, Jory's got something pretty cool. Anybody else want to give that a go? Good. Yeah, Jory, Robin, and Jennifer all nailed that. Excellent definitions there. So maintenance is the continuation of behavior after it was first taught. So what a behavior trap does is here's like the process for behavior traps. First, reinforce the behavior of interest with external reinforcers. Then, engaging in the behavior starts to contact natural reinforcers. And then the natural reinforcers are powerful enough to maintain the behavior without the external reinforcers. So that's our process for behavior traps. Let's go through like a quick example. Let's say you've never ridden a bike before, but you got a bike, you're ready to learn, and you're like, okay, cool. And like first you're like, okay, my first ride, I really want to do it with a friend, kind of show me the ropes and all that. And I need them to kind of like give me some morale boost while I'm doing it. Sweet. So that's the reinforcement of that behavior of interest with those external reinforcers at first. But then you're like, wait, riding bikes is awesome. This is so fun. I want to do this all the time. And then like your speed, keeping track of like how many calories you burn and everything. That's your behavior starting to contact that. And now those things are able to maintain your behavior without your friend even doing anything. So that's a behavior trap. Really great strategy for maintenance. All right, killing it, crew. Hopefully that was helpful. Generalization is a fun topic and one that's getting a lot more attention these days because we don't want rote learning. We want learning that's going to expand to lots of different things so we can be efficient with our time, teach our students very efficiently, get them to generate many responses, because if we're too slow, then we can really miss out on critical learning windows, especially in that 2 to 5 range. It's really super critical. We're fast and efficient with learning. Okie dokie, let's move on to prompts. So prompts are kind of a weird thing. Here is the definition of a prompt. So it's a supplemental stimulus that increases the likelihood of a response occurring. So supplemental here is kind of just means extra. And yes, we are going to go over our 2 main categories: response prompts and stimulus prompts. So a prompt is different from an SD, where an SD is required to know that you are correct, that have the correct response, where a prompt is just going to push you towards a response, whether it's correct or not. So it's an extra thing. It's unnecessary, but it can assist that help a little bit. So for an example, if I said, what color is the sky, that's an SD. But if I was like, the color of the sky is the same as the color of my water bottle, that's a prompt. You don't need to know that information to come up with blue, but it definitely makes it more likely if I'm telling you that, because I'm providing an example right there. So here is, a lot of people get prompts mixed up, and here's the number 1 reason why, is that whenever you're looking at prompts, identify the individual prompt, then categorize it as a stimulus or response prompt. I'm just gonna say other methods are way more prone to error. So use this. Trust me, I've taught a lot of students this, and it works every time. Who knows our 3 different types of response prompts? Let's go ahead, put those into chat if you got them. 3 different types. Anybody know response prompts? I'll give our first one. We have physical prompts. Positional prompt is actually going to be one of our stimulus prompts. Oh no, we listed all 3 stimulus prompts before we got our response prompts. Good. Yeah, Robin nailed this. Awesome. So this one is also our model prompt, and then our verbal prompt. Our stimulus prompts, we have our positional prompts. You guys got those. We also have our movement prompts. Think about these as like gestural prompts. The technical word for that is movement, though, so make sure you are familiar with that. And then our last one is going to be our redundancy prompts. Okay, pretty straightforward. Physical prompts are when we physically move the learner's body to engage in the behavior. Pretty straightforward. Model prompt is providing a demonstration of the behavior. And this could be live or in vivo, or a video prompt. And then a verbal prompt, I'm just going to say this is like the everything else category, because this is actually a really large category. So what this does is like anything that communicates what to do, or how to respond. So for example, like my thing was that my prompt that was the sky is the same color as my water bottle. That's a verbal prompt because I'm giving info that's verbally communicated that informs you of the answer but doesn't really give the answer. One thing I want to note is that I'm going to bold this real big. A verbal prompt is not a repetition of an SD. We're going to bold, highlight, make this huge so you remember this, because this really bothers me when students in BCBA say this. So for example, if I say put your arms up and the kid doesn't do it, and then I say put your arms up, that's not a verbal prompt. That is a repetition of our SD. So a verbal prompt might be like, you lift your arms up by, I mean, that's kind of a weird one, but you lift your arms up by slowly lifting your hands above your head. So that's like a verbal instruction of how to do it. So examples here, we could have verbal instruction. We can think of like a hint, like a verbal hint. This could also be a picture. This could be written directions. So this is a very large category. Okay, just catching up on chats real quick. Jennifer is asking, response equals after behavior? No, a response is an interchangeable word with behavior. When we're looking at prompts, prompts occur before behavior. They're an antecedent stimulus to behavior. Victoria's got a question. Are stimulus fading and shape transformations redundancy prompts? That's an interesting question. I don't think so. Not always necessarily. I think there could be some overlap there, but not necessarily. Interesting question. I didn't think about that one. Let's go ahead and look at our 3 different types of stimulus prompts. First of all, we have our positional prompt. So this is when we move stimulus to be interacted with closer to the individual. So here's an example: is like move the hand sanitizer right outside the bathroom. So it's in a really convenient location. We're moving it closer to the individual when there's going to be that motivating operation for it. Excuse me. And then movement and gestural prompts. So pretty straightforward. It's kind of like any motion or gesture towards something that should be interacted with. So some examples of this could be like a point, could have a tap, we could have like a firm eye gaze towards something. Anything like that. Lastly, our redundancy prompt is this is something that is consistently paired with the correct answer choice. So for like my favorite example of redundancy prompts, I know it's not like the best audience for it, but if you play video games at all, in video games, often if the developers want you to interact with something, they'll make it shiny. So that shininess is paired with like all these cool things. Actually, I think a more relatable example is like an Instagram notification. So you see that red little heart light up, and then you know you have a notification there, and that it prompts you to do it. So it's consistently paired with good reinforcers, so it gets you to select that thing. Yeah, Victoria's asking about stimulus fading and stimulus shape transformation. So both of those are not necessarily prompts. Those are both procedures. So we think about like any other procedure like shaping or chaining or differential reinforcement, or discrimination training, things like that. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and just talk about exam tips. So I have so many different tips. if anybody, or if the person who put this up here first wants to kind of add a little bit more about what they're at, where they're at, or what they might most benefit from. Otherwise, I'm gonna just kind of ramble a little bit, and hopefully it's helpful for you guys. So when you're actually taking the exam, first thing you want to do is to prep really well the day before, mentally and physically. So move around a little bit, eat healthily, make sure like your body's in tip-top shape, because like that alone could be the difference between a couple questions, and that for some individuals is the difference between passing or not. So try to get good night's rest. I know some of you are looking at this list and like, how? This is impossible. And I don't know your life situation, but I'm telling you that if you can find a way, it's gonna have huge benefit for you. I would recommend like eating breakfast before. Get good routines. Make sure that you are on your A game for this exam, because it's a pretty draining experience. As far as question dissection, yeah, I have a lot of tips there. So, yeah, so many different tips. First of all, you want to like pull out the relevant information and focus on what the question is asking. This sounds so simple, but the way to do this is just reread the last sentence of the question before you answer it. So many people, they will go through a question and they're like, oh, this question is going to ask about this. And then they circle the answer that they think, and then they get it wrong and they're like, oh, I didn't read it. I'm like, yeah, you have to read what the question is actually asking you. And then once you're focused in on like what the question wants to know from you, then it's easier to pull out all of that relevant information. So what is actually going to relate to this or not? Couple other strategies that you can use. This is actually a sneak peek because I want to make a questions dissection video soon too. Yeah, Victoria has a really good advice there. Bring snacks. Okay, so pulling out the relevant information, we talked about that. Next thing you want to do is like when you're down to two answer options, which I know happens quite frequently. Here are the strategies that you can do. First of all, I'm gonna emphasize this again because it's just so important. Reread last sentence of the question. Absolutely crucial, crucial, crucial. Next, you want to do strategy you want to do is compare and contrast. So, what's the difference between these two answers? And rule out the things that are the same between them. So what I mean by that is like if last two answer options are differential reinforcement with extinction and differential reinforcement plus punishment, then only focus on the difference between extinction and punishment, because the differential reinforcement is the same. So that compare and contrast really can help a lot. And then the last strategy that I really like, I call it play it out. So think through a real life situation using that procedure with the described client. And when you do this, this will often illuminate things that go well or things that don't. So I had a student the other day, I think we were talking about, there was a question about what intervention should we use for a kid eloping to the sample tables at Costco. And we were down to differential reinforcement of low rates and down to differential reinforcement of incompatible rates were our last two options. So we use this play it out, and we're like, wait, okay, if we do DRL, then it's actually the snack people at Costco that have to limit this individual. That's not going to be that feasible. And then we ran through DRI, and we're like, okay, well, if they kind of just like hold on to the cart, and then we can get him a snack whenever he continues to do that, then that actually works really well. So when we did the play it out, we saw so easily what the answer was going to be. So this is a really good strategy to use as well. Yeah, low-key Lane, good to see you here. Asking what we should put on your whiteboard. Honestly, whatever you feel is important. Like some people are more visual learners, so they kind of want to like draw out their contingencies and things like that. I encourage that. I'm definitely like a typing person. Like I think actually when I took the exam, they didn't have whiteboards. They just gave you paper. So I think I would like, use like not even a whole sheet of paper, because I could just do everything typing in the comments when I wanted to. So it really depends. Like a lot of people will also like if they have a struggle topic, they'll like stare at their flashcards really hard right before they walk in, and then write down the things that they just memorized real fast, and so they have it for reference. I actually think it's a good strategy. I used that when I took the exam. For some reason, I could not master the group contingencies when I was preparing for the exam. So I like looked at my flashcards right before, and I wrote them all down right at the start. So I think everybody's going to be a little bit different. I think people are going to find different utility for their whiteboards. I don't think there's one way to do it. There's lots of ways to do it. Good questions. Hopefully this was helpful for exam tips. I think we're going to stop there because I could go forever on these. Did anybody, especially the person who wanted more exam tips, did they feel satisfied? Awesome. Good to hear. Let's go ahead and talk about stimulus equivalence. Okay, so stimulus equivalence training. Kind of going back to our generalization, what this is that it's an efficient way to teach relationships between stimuli that are equal to each other. And what we mean by like, equal to each other is like represent the same thing. So often looking at the comparisons between actual objects, pictures of objects, spoken words, and written words. So usually in your stimulus equivalence questions, it's going to be some combination of these 4 different types of stimuli. All right, so we talked about stimulus equivalence training being an efficient way to teach this, and where that comes from is the efficiency is that we can teach some responses and expect other responses to be generated from what they've learned. So we, in our triangles, stimulus equivalence triangles, let's see, it's going to be tricky to how to do this, but we'll get there. But essentially, a triangle has 3 sides. There's 2 relationships on each side, so that gives us a total of 6 relationships for a set of 3 stimuli. And in our stimulus equivalence training, what we do is we teach 2 relationships and test if 6 are produced. 6 total are produced. So that would be 4 generated or derived. And this is per set of 3 stimuli. Now, for us to be able to expect the behavior generation to occur, they must have generalized reflexivity. So let's go over what reflexivity is. Essentially what this is identity matching. So it's the ability to match the same stimulus to itself. So this is, yeah, it's right on track there, Alyssa. So this is our like A equals A relationship, B equals B. So I say car, you say car, I give you a car, you match to the same car in the array. That's reflexivity. So if we don't have generalized reflexivity, if the individual can't do that with most things that we give them, then stimulus equivalence training is not something that we do. This is not expected to generate anything new. It's just going to frustrate your client very much. So you should work on matching until you get to that point because it's a very important skill. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and draw our triangle now and get an example rolling. First of all, we're going to look at the stimulus, the written word car. Then we're going to look at the vocal word car. And then we're going to look at a car. So, in these relationships, our train relationships are going to be the solid lines, and then our dotted relationships are going to be the generated. So solid lines equals taught relationship. Dotted lines equals derived or generated relationship. So next term we're going to talk about is symmetry. So with symmetry is that we teach one direction of a relationship and the opposite direction relationship between the same two stimuli is derived. So we're going to mark that on here with a green line. So first of all, we're going to have our solid train relationship. So what we did here is we gave the individual our written word car, and then we had them match it to an array of stimuli. One of those was the car. So that was the original arrangement. And note that like where our line started was our antecedent for the behavior of matching here. So most of the time with stimulus equivalence relationships, we're looking at matching relationships. Symmetry now occurs when this opposite relationship is derived. So now they're given the car, and then they can match it to the written word car, an array of different words. So this is symmetry. It's the opposite direction relationship of the taught relationship. All right, so if we were to teach this relationship, when I say car, you find the car in the array, then what relationship could we expect to be derived via symmetry? I will also label these A, B, and C. If that makes things easier, feel free to use that. Yeah, Jennifer, I like that one too. Like reflexivity equals reflection. So it's mirrored, same exact stimulus. That's a helpful tool. Wow, really nice answers coming in, Alyssa and Victoria. Both my tutoring students are killing it. Of course, because they're my students. I mean, they're both awesome. Both about to crush this exam. Good, yeah, Jennifer, right on track as well. So this relationship would be this opposite relationship that we just created. Let me get my actual green here. We have symmetry here. So this relationship is B equals C. Or you can say that they're given the car and then they say car when they're presented with that car. Excelente. All right, let's talk about transitivity now. Let me see. I just need to scooch this drawings down like an inch. Is this going to behave? Yay! It is behaving. I love that. How cool. So transitivity. This is when we teach two sides of our triangle, and the third side in either direction is derived. I think that's the simplest I've ever said that definition. Wow, let's look at it. So symmetry, transitivity here, we're now going to mark in our blue. So we can look at these two relationships. We taught the written word car equals the car. We also taught that when I say car, they can choose the car. And now this can derive these two relationships. So now when they see the written word car, they can say car. Or if you say car, then I can identify the written word car or write the written word car. So those are our transitivity relationships. And the pattern I really like to look for is this two sides makes the third. So we taught these two relationships, and now the third side of the triangle is derived. That's always going to be transitivity. Now the trick with these questions is not looking at the triangles. What you're going to notice is that, wow, there's only two possible patterns to look for on my triangle. Is it the opposite of a train relationship? Or was it the two legs makes the third pattern? And that's all you need to look for. Symmetry is the opposite. Transitivity is the two sides equals the third. The hardest part is reading the questions and getting the information on your triangle accurately. So take your time with these. Draw your triangles. Again, draw your triangles. You're not going to solve these questions. You have a very low chance of solving the question accurately if you do not draw your triangles. So get it done, get it right, take your time. If you're like feeling crunch for time and you see a stimulus equivalence question, flag and move on, because it's going to take you some time to wrestle with. Jennifer's asking a question. Transitivity is always derived. Actually, both of these are always derived. Symmetry and transitivity. Reflexivity, we could talk about that being derived as well if we have that generalized reflexivity. And that is, again, a prerequisite to doing stimulus equivalence training and for symmetry and transitivity to occur. Yep, so whenever we say a relationship is derived, that just means we didn't teach it. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, but came out of what we've previously taught. Okay. Well, that was our stimulus equivalence speed run. Hopefully it made sense. Let's look at this tip. Alyssa's saying her very first tutor said that count the stimuli, 1, 2, 3 would give you the answer. So 1 reflex, 2 stimuli. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like that trick. We're not going to talk about that anymore. So to look at the relationships and see what's up. Sometimes they'll even throw 4 stimuli in there. And that's where you need to like focus on that test strategy where we're focusing on the relevant information, because there's probably some extra information that's not really that necessary for that. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about discrete trial versus naturalistic training. We might have time for one more topic after, but we are kind of squeezing it. So this might be our last topic. But again, thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. If you haven't done so far, please go ahead and like the video so everybody can see it. Even later on, those likes stay. And then also, if you would like to get all the notes from this session after emailed to you afterwards, go ahead and fill out that quick form so I can email that to you. Okay, let's get into it. Discrete trial versus naturalistic training. So discrete trial training. Here are some of the components of it. It's a very structured method of teaching. And then we teach in trials. So what a trial looks like is that we have an SD for a behavior. We have a correct response, and that's defined. And then there's a consequence for the behavior. And either this is going to be reinforcement or some kind of error correction. Error correction, I kind of use that term loosely. So sometimes your error correction is just ignore and move on. And it's not really correction, but it's like the consequence that happens if there's an error that occurs. So very structured method of teaching, and it's I'll also say like this is teacher-led targets. So they're chosen before instruction. DTT is actually like starting to get a little outdated. But can be useful for early learners or to drill a skill. So the reason it's getting outdated is that it doesn't do a whole lot to promote generalization. And we're finding with autistic individuals in general that this is actually incredibly important, because if we teach one setting to engage in a specific behavior, then it might not occur outside other settings unless we actually try to train for it. So gotta be careful there. I've seen a lot less use of DTT, and honestly I think it's a good thing. So we're not going to spend a whole lot more on discrete trial training, but know like what a trial is and this kind of setup. And then versus naturalistic teaching. This is where we kind of like squeeze learning opportunities into highly engaging activities for our clients. So this is more client focused, or like client-centered. So we engage in the activities that they would like, and then we like create the opportunities that we can out of the activity. I would say like this takes a more skilled therapist to run, and I'd say like more like intuitive therapist to run effectively. Because and therapist, technician, RBT, BT, whatever. The reason I say this is that you don't always have like the clearest plan of what you should hit, and you need to be really creative in how you find these opportunities and present them, get them to be really fun and engaging for them, but also like challenge them and actually get them to learn, because our job isn't just to play with kids, it's actually to help these symptoms of autism that are holding this individual back. So it takes a very skilled therapist to know these are skills that are harder to teach. I've had some behavior technicians. I haven't been doing as much clinical work recently, but I've had some behavior technicians where I'm just like, wow, I could spend 200 hours with you and I don't think I could teach you to work effectively with any kid. And that's just how it is sometimes. And I think that's totally okay, but that I'm sure that person has plenty of other skills in many other areas. Alrighty. Well, that is going to wrap up our fourth Understanding Behavior live study hall. Wow, we got into some deep stuff today, and I was really excited about all the topics and discussion. Thank you guys again so much for being here. If you would like those notes, go ahead and fill out that quick form. If you do like my style and are interested in tutoring as well, I do have a shop where you can purchase any sessions for, and you can find that at understandingbehavior.shop. Also, I run these every week, so if tutoring's not in your budget, see you next week. All right, have a great one, everyone, and I hopefully will see you next week. Take care.